What's up, people, and welcome to the I Am Conquering Mountains podcast. I have a very, 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 very special guest with me today. This individual, she is a wonderful entrepreneur. She is conquering female entrepreneurship, especially female entrepreneurship of color. Her hustle is inspiring. She has been featured on several news outlets from CBS, NBC, Fox, even Good Morning Arizona. She is the host of the Janine Hernandez Experience podcast. She has published not one, not two, not three, four, or five books, but she has published six. Six. Like I said, her hustle game is strong. She is the 2011 recipient of the Mitch Aiken Mentor of the Year Award for the New Pathways program. She sits on the board of Reach Family Services, which is a local nonprofit organization that focuses on assisting families who are raising children with behavioral, health, and emotional challenges. She is a brilliant entrepreneur. She has her own company called the Book Publishing Academy, where she coaches and helps individuals reach their goal of becoming an author. And like I said, she has published six books, and I'm so excited to talk about the work that she has done and the work that she is doing and inspiring people to take their story and put it in a book form. And I want to introduce you all to Miss Janine Hernandez.
Thank you so much for having me. And wow, that was an introduction. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I forgot one more thing. She even has her own day. Her
Oh, yeah.
own day. The proclamation by the city of Phoenix as Book Publishing Academy Day on April 16th.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like you have done some things that many of us are aspiring to do. Like you're setting the bar and you're raising those standards and you're knocking tackling down those objectives. So you're doing a lot of things that many of us want to do. Oh, forgot to also mention that she has not only published six books, but she is also a number one bestseller. So she has done many great things. I got it all listed here. I can keep going, but she has done many wonderful things. I'm so excited to connect with her. I remember when I had published my first book, and the way that I connected with you was that if you remember, I had reached out to you because I was actually looking for podcasters to try to make an appearance on their podcast to promote my book, Conquering Mountains. And that's when I reached out to you, and then we started. And then I asked you if I could send my book to you. You gave me some great feedback for that as well. I'm excited to hear the things that you do for the Book Publishing Academy as well too. But before we dive into those things, you've written six books, right? So, what? How did you discover your passion for writing?
I discovered it when I was a little girl. I've always been writing short stories and poetry, and I would write letters to my friends back in the 90s.
Okay.
It was just my jam. That was what I used to do. And when I was about 9 years old, I started to write my first book. I would tell my parents I'm going to be an author. This is what I'm going to do when I
Nice.
grow up. And like literally my whole life, that's all I've ever talked about. So
Mhm.
I've had this. This is what I was put on this earth to do, is to be
Right.
an author and to help people publish. So that's kind of how I got started, was when I was little.
That's definitely a blessing. So you started writing your first book at 9.
At 9, but back in the 90s, we didn't have the same accessibility that we do now.
Right. Right.
You either had to go through a traditional publishing house or not.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to go that route. I was very smart back then. I was like, nope, I don't want anyone to make money off of me.
Nice.
So we stopped the process of looking for a publisher. And it wasn't until I was about 26 that I published my first book. I waited a very
Mhm.
long time. So
Yeah. It was worth the wait. What was the
thank
first book called?
Through My Eyes. It's a compilation of my poetry.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So you started at 9 and then you went in 26 and then published your first book at 26.
Yes.
So for someone who is looking to write a book, like what are some things that they need to be prepared for when they start to write their first book?
I think when people start to write their book, they have this idea that everything's going to be rainbows and beautiful unicorns and it's just going to flow. And I always prepare people up front of like, writing a book and publishing a book is, it's not that it's hard, but you're going to overcome so many challenges, and you have
Right.
to be in the right state of mind to be able to overcome those challenges, because a lot
Mhm.
of people quit. That's the problem. A lot of people will quit,
Ah,
and they'll start writing their book. They might get writer's block, or they might have fear. They might have, the friends and family telling them that they can't do something, or maybe
mhm.
it's the financial investment. It's just so many things, mistakes along the way, and people will give up. So I always tell people, like, you ready for this? Because
Right.
you gotta be prepared, because
Do
if
you know
not,
what you're getting into?
yeah, do you know what you're getting into? And I'm very transparent with people. Like, it's not
Mhm.
easy. It's not
Right.
easy.
And that makes sense because I remember when I was writing my first book, I started in 2014, but I didn't publish it until what, like 5 years later, like 2019. Yeah, 2019, August 2019 is when I published it. So, and I quit probably like 50 times before I actually say, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
Especially because of the type of book that I was writing. A lot of those things I had wrote about, I hadn't shared with anyone. So I definitely can understand where people may kind of dive into it and think like it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Now, do you also get, and I'll tell you why I'm asking you this, and after you answer as well, do you also often have conversations with people about their goals when they publish it and they start to sell it?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of authors that or people that have already published that reach
Mm,
out to me, and they're like, "Hey, I published a book. I have no idea what I'm doing. What am I supposed to do now?"
yeah,
So I talk a lot with authors about, like, okay, let's create a game plan. Like, why did you even
mm,
start writing this book in the first place? What's your why?
okay.
Who is your target audience? What, we talk about all of that. Let's
Mhm.
create a goal. Do you have a sales goal? Like, it's just so much, because it's so much bigger than just, okay, I wrote the book and now it's on Amazon. It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do now?
Right. I remember when and I asked that question because I remember when I published my first book, and I self-published as well. Um, And I remember when I published it, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be the best thing that anybody's ever read. People's gonna fly off the charts. It's gonna be in the bookstores." And then it's like, boom.
Yeah,
But
you have to be prepared. You have to have a game plan. You have to have a sales plan. You have to have a
yeah,
goal. You have to be consistent, motivated. Like, there's just so much that goes into it.
yeah. So tell us about the Book Publishing Academy and how you're helping people to navigate some of those barriers with the thought of getting past the quitting mentality or stuff like that and those barriers that come up. How do you help people to navigate their way to becoming a published author?
So the Book Publishing Academy happened organically. Like I said, I published my very first book, and then I would have people reach out to me and say, "Well, I want to do what you're doing. Can you coach me?" So I started
Mhm.
doing one-to-one in-person coaching. But when I got to a point of like 12 people, I was coaching 12 people at the same time.
Oh
That can be
wow.
draining. It's a lot for a person. So
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, how do I help more people and scale this in a way that it's not going to drain me?" And I was like, "Well, what if I do virtual?" So I started the process of creating an online academy. It's 8 modules with over 75 different videos that will teach you
Mm.
everything that I know about book publishing and how to publish and how to sell. And so I started creating that, and then about 5 months into me launching it, the pandemic happened.
Ah.
And it for a lot of people, the pandemic was horrible, but for me it was a blessing, because everyone was home and everyone wanted to write a book.
Got a lot of
So
time on their hands.
yeah, we went from like 10 authors to now we're over 75
Oh
authors.
wow.
And yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about mindset. I think that's probably the number one thing that I talk with people about is mindset, because if you're not in the
Mhm.
right state of mind, it doesn't matter what you create, you're not going to sell it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we do mindset calls. I do biweekly group calls with them as well. I do one-to-one coaching calls. Pretty much anything to get them to publish their book and
Right.
finish their project. Yeah.
Nice. So it's not just, they take the class or they sign up for the academy, they go through the modules and that's it, but they actually get you as well.
Yep. They get a
That's
part
nice.
of me as well.
Yeah.
I bug them, like, "Hey, did you do that? Where are you at? What are we doing?"
Right.
And some of them ignore me, but most of them, they appreciate it. They're like, "Oh my god, she's like on it. She's on it, and she reminds me of stuff, and she holds me accountable."
Mhm.
So yeah.
So So it's 75 authors, the total number of people you've helped publish a book?
We have about 75 authors enrolled. I think we have,
Oh, wow.
I'm going off the top of my head, maybe
Yeah.
about 20 that have published so far. We have
Okay.
a few bestsellers. We've had some that have been featured on Univision, on CBS, on Fox, on
Mhm.
Good Morning Arizona. Like, they're just doing amazing things.
Yeah, I saw I don't know his name, but the one guy who he's got a dope book cover, but he made a post about him the other day. He's was on a news outlet for I think like Child Abuse Awareness Month or something like
Yes,
that.
Walt McKinley. He's
Hmm.
killing it. Yeah, he was on Good Morning Arizona talking about trauma, childhood trauma.
Nice.
Hmm.
So, how many bestsellers? Now, first, let me ask this question: um, do you use the same tactics that you teach people when you write your own book?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. I will say that it gets easier. Like my
Hmm.
last book that I wrote last year, I wrote it in 3 weeks.
Wow.
It was easy. I was like, I would write 10 hours a day for about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks straight, and I had a book in 2 months. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the process gets easier. You make the mistakes faster, you learn faster.
Right.
But yeah, I do the same thing that I teach, I preach, or I preach, I teach, I do
Right.
it myself. Yeah.
So these are proven methods that you
Proven.
are teaching people when you're helping them to or coaching them through writing a book.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, I've made all the mistakes myself so that
Mhm.
you don't have to make them, right?
Right.
So if you just follow my process, I promise you it's gonna work.
Man, wish I had a known about this when I was writing my first book. I should have been researching then. Is that definitely what? Now, how long does it take the average person to write their first book when they sign up with the Book Publishing Academy?
It really depends on the kind of book that they're working on. I've had some authors knock a book out in 6 months, some a
Mhm.
year, but it depends. Some people hold themselves back or
Yeah.
they have writer's block. I have some children's books authors, and those can be quick, like it could be 3 months. So it just
Hmm.
depends.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So I mean, you are like, that's got to be like some rewarding work there that, when you're not only publishing your own book, because I remember that rewarding feeling when I finally published my first book, but also helping inspire other people to publish their own book. Like, how does that make you feel when you see the finished product of your authors?
Their success is my success. Like, I feel like their books are my books, like they're my babies. So I
Yeah.
get passionate, I get excited.
Mm.
I celebrate with them. I just had an author, she did a pre-launch, so she hasn't even launched her book yet.
Wow.
She made $5,000 in 1 week.
Oh, wow.
Over 200 sales. So we went out, we celebrated. I enjoy it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I saw that you do I guess like a closing out celebration when people finish. I saw there was like a dinner or something that you guys had.
Oh, so yeah, so she Ralphie, she is an author, but she's also
Mhm,
a friend of mine. So, and we hadn't seen each other in about 2 years since the pandemic, so we were like, we
mhm.
need to go celebrate. So yeah, we went out, we had dinner, I got her some gifts. It was a lot of fun.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
So now you have 6 books. Your recent book is The Light in Times of Darkness,
Yes.
right? So and for you all watching, this is the book, The Light in
Yeah.
Times of Darkness. I've been reading this book. I haven't been able to put it down, about halfway through it, and you open up some interesting topics to discuss.
Yes.
Um, I'm not going to dive into like what's in it because I want people to buy it, but I do want to ask you what led you to the title, The Light in Times of Darkness?
The title, I was going through a really rough time in my life.
Hmm.
I was surrounded by someone that was extremely verbally, mentally, and emotionally abusive, and
Okay.
I was in a very dark place. Not me myself, but that person had a cloud over me.
Right, right.
And it was probably one of the hardest things I have ever had to overcome myself.
Hmm.
But in the midst of that, I was still a light. Like, I
Hmm.
feel that I am a bright light that just shines. And when people talk to me, they can see that. They can see my excitement, my
Hmm.
enthusiasm, and all of that. So even though I was in that situation, I still saw myself as this bright light that was gonna like shine regardless of how dark it was. Does that make
That's
sense?
yes, that's impactful right there. That's powerful because a lot of times when people get into those dark clouded situations, they don't see a way out, and it gets so cloudy and so dark that they can't find the light. But you recognize that you have that light in you, and regardless of the situation that you're in, you're still going to let your light shine. Um, and you talk about something in the book, if I can ask, something that was new to me, and it was narcissistic abuse.
Hmm.
Because when we think about like domestic violence, the first thing that people I think about is physical, and then when you take back a layer, people go into the emotional, the mental, the financial. But when you talk about narcissistic abuse, can you share what that looks like?
Narcissistic abuse can happen from anyone. It could be from a partner, it could be from a family member, a coworker, a boss, etc. But basically, narcissistic abuse is when someone mentally and emotionally abuses you and verbally abuse you, but they use tactics to diminish you. So they
Mm,
use like they will manipulate you. And one
mhm,
of the biggest ones is that they will gaslight you. And gaslighting means basically, like, let's say, I'll just give you an example. I had gotten cursed out one day, right? And
mhm.
I'm like, well, why would you curse me out? I didn't do anything. And it's like, well, I didn't
Right.
curse you out. And so it's like,
Mm,
it's playing psychological games with your mind. And then you
mhm.
start to question yourself, well, did that really happen? I
Right.
could have sworn and you start to
Ye
feel confused, and you almost start to feel like you're losing yourself because this
Mhm,
person is constantly manipulating you.
mhm.
So it's a lot of emotional, verbal, and mental abuse, and it can be very, very heavy because you lose yourself in it.
Right. So how did you maintain, letting your light guide you through that situation? Like, did you have any positive outlets that you utilized during that time?
TikTok.
TikTok.
I'll be
That's a
100%
good one.
honest with you. TikTok was a lifesaver for me because there's a
Mhm,
lot of people in on TikTok that make reels or videos
mhm,
on abuse. And so I
mhm.
started watching them. A lot of them are funny too. So I
Yeah.
started watching them and then recreating them. And then in
Mhm,
doing that, I was impacting other people. Like I would get people that would reach out to me and say, oh my God, like I wish I had your strength, or oh my God, I'm going
wow.
through the same thing, or just asking for advice. And there was a moment where I asked God, I told God, I was like, this feels so uncomfortable, me sharing and being so vulnerable. And
Mhm,
God was like, do it anyways. And so that is why I continued to just do TikToks and
mhm,
share my story. And I ended up writing the book was because I knew that it was going to help other people. I feel that I went through that situation so that I can help others. It wasn't for
mhm.
me particular, but I was the vessel to help other people, if that makes sense.
It does, because a lot of times when people get into struggle, and I'm a minister as well, a lot of times when we look at our own struggles that we're going through, we can ask ourselves, why me? But it sounds like you took that and added, why not me? And found your purpose in those struggles that you're going through. And
Why
def
not me? Whew.
yeah,
It's true. It's like,
yeah.
well, why not? I know God chose me for this assignment because who
Hmm.
else who else is better at being strong and being a light and being able to help other people? And I'm
Right.
like, okay, I get it, God, I get it.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely had to understand that myself when I was working on, my first book as well, because I didn't want to embarrass my family, or, really I was worried about my dad's reaction because of the situations that and the experiences that I had with my father. Um, but then I was like, well, this is going to bless somebody, it's going to help some parent, some child, somebody who is out there who is struggling with, some of the same things. So you had started sharing your story, before you wrote the book, or when you wrote the book, was that the first time that you actually like kind of dove into some of those experiences that you had?
I was already sharing. I started sharing on TikTok and a little bit on Instagram.
Mhm,
And then I wrote the book, and I was ready to write the book and to share my
mhm.
story. and it helped so many people. It's crazy. I can't
Mhm.
even explain it. I even had men reach out to me that were like, "Hey, I went through the same thing," but a lot of
Mm.
men suffer in silence. A lot of men do not
True.
speak up
True.
about abuse. So it felt good that I was giving them a safe space, to say something and
Mhm.
feel heard, like they were being heard.
So the one thing I learned when I was in college, and I was taking creative writing class, and that's kind of when I discovered my love for like poetry and writing, song lyrics and stuff like that. One thing that always stuck with me, my professor talked about that writing is a great form of self therapy.
Mhm.
It's very therapeutic. Do you feel like writing is therapeutic for you? And if so, how do you use your writing skills to kind of help you to navigate some of those dark spaces that you get in?
I feel, yes, it's 100% therapeutic for me. Every single book that I have written, it's because I've had an intuitive nudge to do it. So I start to get this feeling like you need to write a book. This is what it's gonna be about. I let it sit and simmer, and then
Mhm.
boom, it just comes out. Like this last book, like I said, I wrote it in about 2.5 weeks, and
Mhm.
I honestly, when I read back through it, I'm like, how in the what? Like you wrote
Yeah,
that? You know what I mean? It
right.
almost felt like someone was channeling the information through me. Like
Mhm.
a higher being, God, someone was
Right.
like, you need to get this message out, and I don't even know if it was me.
I know to
But
be
it is
writing like 10
therapeutic.
hours a day.
Yeah, it was therapeutic.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, I love to write because it helps me to kind of focus on the things that are, the issue at hand, and help me. And I like writing because I get to navigate the story. I get to not only share the experience of what it is, but I get to control the outcome. I tell my students, I'm a school counselor, and I had a poetry club last year that I ran for my eighth grade students. And we used writing to kind of navigate some of the childhood trauma experiences that they were going through, where they could share their story in a poetic form, but it also helped them to figure out how they're going to overcome those things as well too. What kind of feedback do you get when you help authors publish their first book?
They tell me they love me. Like they're just like
Yeah.
they're like, I have no words for you. That's pretty much all of them say the same
Mhm,
thing. They're super grateful for me, and like they just,
mhm,
I just listen. I just
yeah.
thank you.
Now, do you also edit the books for them as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not my area of expertise. I have no desire to edit. So I
Yeah.
outsource that. We actually have an editor. Her name is Samantha Smorleys. She's from
Okay.
Smorleys Editorial, and she has been handling all of our editing. Thank God
Nice.
for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have other coaches as well, or are you the main coach?
I am the main coach right now.
Okay.
But I do want to bring on other people to help as we continue to grow, because
Mhm.
it's a lot.
I bet. I mean, especially when you were talking about 12 authors that you have to check in with, you got to call, you got to email update, and then they call you and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you take like, and you created this online platform as well, and has that been successful as well?
It has been. It's actually, like I said, ever since I launched it, we've been doing
Mhm,
really, really well. I just, I'm in the growing stage of a business. It's that
mhm.
scaling part, and how do you get it from here to here? So I'm still
Right.
learning. It has a lot
Mhm,
to do with like systems and funnels and all of that back end stuff. But yeah,
mhm.
we're growing.
And you have an event coming up.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your event?
Our event is Sunday. We do a summit every single year. We bring
Okay.
on different speakers and panel speakers, and they share different topics. So this year, the topic is called "The Journey to Becoming an Author." So they're going to be
Mhm,
sharing just different things, like how to build your author brand, how to start the writing process, how to overcome self-limiting beliefs. Just yeah, it's going to be
mhm,
amazing. It is virtual. Due to the
mhm.
pandemic, we had to maintain it virtual, but hopefully next year we'll be able to do something in person.
Yeah, the pandemic has kind of messed up a lot of stuff for us, you
Yeah,
know.
has.
But it's been a blessing to you as well too, because you got to inspire a lot more people with, writing and publishing their first book as well.
Yeah, it has been a blessing for us. I honestly,
Mhm.
yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful that, you are inspiring the world to share their story. Do you get a lot of first-time publishers, writers?
Yeah, I that's mostly what I get is first time
Okay.
people that are like, I don't know what I'm doing. Help
Right.
me. Yeah.
Well, you are the guru for writing books, and I'm so thankful that you joined us today and sharing your story. Um, buy the book, The Light
Thank
in the
you.
Times of Darkness. It's a beautiful cover, by the way,
Thank
and I
you.
love the title because it's so relatable. A lot of times we've got find ourselves in those dark spaces, and it's hard to see that light, like we talked about earlier. But like you mentioned, we all have that light shining within us. We just have to kind of find it and navigate it and let it flow.
Yeah.
But I definitely appreciate you for joining me today on the I Am Conquering Mountains podcast. Thank you for all the things that you do. I definitely will probably be trying to sign up for the Book Publishing Academy for my next book, so you can keep me on track and on pace, and I don't stop. And hopefully, much more success comes to you in celebration of all the things that you're doing and will do for today's people.
Thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Hang on while I stop the recording.